Hey, I'm Tony K. Welcome to Transformation School. Today's lesson is Generations Deluxe Class RC. If you want to see me stab myself in the thumb, stick around for the extra credit after the bell. Now, if your RC has an opening between her thumb and her fingers, then you will also need to stick around after the credits. But if your RC has a thumb connected to her fingers, then you don't necessarily need to stick around. Except, of course, if you want to see me stab myself in the thumb. So, let's have a look at this figure. Oh, by the way, if you would like to see transformation from robot mode to vehicle mode, skip to
6
minutes and
35
seconds in the video. If you'd like to see transformation from vehicle mode to robot mode, skip to
14
minutes and
2
seconds in the video. But first, we are going to take a look at these accessories. We have a small pistol, a large pistol, and 2 swords. And according to the official instructions, she'll be holding the pistols in her hands, and you can store the swords on her thighs. But she could be holding the swords. You could store the pistols on the thighs. The pistols have a tab on each side that's the same size as the handle. So if you were to tab this in on her thigh, there we go. I don't know, I think that looks pretty cool. The sword, on the other hand, I don't think that looks very cool on her thigh. But if you like it, then go for it. Now, of course, I put the pistols on her thighs. Swords, she could be holding them, of course. Cutting cons into sushi. But if she's not holding the swords, or if she's holding the pistols, I would prefer to store my swords in her backpack, just by sliding it in through the all the open space behind her arms. Now, I think that just looks a little more attractive, a little more aesthetically pleasing, having the swords mounted to her back, as opposed to sticking out the side of her thigh, like she's got thigh wings or something. She's got ports on her forearms. I suppose this reminds me of the Transformers Prime version of RC, with it on her, with the sword on her forearm. Oops. But the weapons, I don't know. The gun's there. That's a pretty nifty idea. But let's check that out real quick with both swords. Doesn't tab in very securely. Just a little bit of a touch seems to pop that out. Okay, so there's those ports. But then there are ports up at the top of her backpack. We're going to look at those again in vehicle mode. So, is that what they're for? Are they for robot mode storage? This doesn't fit behind her arm incredibly well. Maybe if I turn it around. Still not finding a very good angle to plug in there. I'll just wedge it in, but I'm not sure if that was the idea behind these ports. And they don't seem to function very well in vehicle mode. But we'll get there in a few minutes. And the swords, let's see, if in robot mode this, settles in, pushed all the way up to her back, but if I move it back a little bit, maybe I can peg the sword in back here. And it just keeps popping out. It was not a very good spot for the sword. I think it's because the sword is pushing on the back of this shoulder area. But if I turn the sword upside down, no, then the handle gets stuck in her, can't fit in her shoulder area. So, there's that. There's 2 ports on the, what's the rear end of the car, but at the back, at the bottom of her backpack. I thought maybe I could plug the swords in back here, but there just isn't enough clearance between this panel and the other section of the car that it folds up to. Okay, so let's move on to the vehicle mode, and then we're going to look at all of these ports again. So, we'll pull her head forward, and then not on the silver pin, but on this dot, that is a pivot point for the entire chest. So we'll fold the chest up, push the head in a little bit, and we will bring the hood of the car up, and that'll give me room to tuck the head under, bringing this chest up to make the very front grille of the car. And then what was her abdomen area, we will pivot that over her head. Looks like I can bring the front end of the car down and snap it into place around the black section that makes the steering wheel and the console of her vehicle mode. There's a pivot point on this pin for both arms. We'll bring one arm up and the other. We're going to bring her hands down to what was her waist area. For the thighs, we're going to pivot on this silver pin as well as a hidden pivot point about 1 centimeter below that, 1/4 inch. We're going to do the same on the other side, bringing her thigh out. Now we're going to rotate on her hip section. Let's get the foot real quick, fold that back. Okay, let's bring the other side up a bit and do the same with the other foot. It's going to come all the way so the tip of the heel is touching her calf. Now we'll continue rotating at the hips. We're going to tuck the foot in behind the... Ooh, let's look at these front wheels real quick. This wheel spins freely, but it looks like the rivet that holds it in wasn't pushed in all the way. I mean, I don't think that's bad, so long as the pin doesn't come out or the rivet doesn't come out. But now this other wheel, it won't spin at all. As if maybe this rivet was put in too tightly. So maybe someday I'll try to loosen that up. I could use a pair of pliers to try to pull that rivet out a bit, but I think that's more work than it's worth at this point. So we'll finish pushing her foot in behind that wheel. Same on the other side. And now we're going to bring the back end of the car. Let's push it up towards the front so we can swing the back bumper out. And that's going to click into place. And now we'll bring the back end of the car down. There's a tab on that rear bumper section that will tab in behind her thighs. Now take a look at this. What would this be called? A fin? A spoiler? Maybe a fin. Isn't pushed in all the way. And when I pull this out, I see that the front end is mashed. Doesn't look as clean as the tab on the back. I think I'm going to just cut that off. I know my fin will be free to pop out afterwards, but before I filmed this, I noticed that I'm just not going to get this fin tabbed in with that mashed piece getting in the way. There we go. I hope you don't have to do the same thing with your fin. So I'm going to put my fin back in. Just a little bit of a nuisance. No big deal. Okay, tab this bumper back in. Had to push this foot back in. According to the diagram on the official Hasbro instructions, the hands just kind of fit in this space with the back of the hand facing, at this point it's facing the camera. If you're transforming it and holding it the same way, it's facing, it should be facing you. Now for the weapons, according to the official instructions, you can plug the pistols in on the back here and plug the swords in to the sides. Okay. So that's the official instructions, but these things can be rearranged a little bit. You've got these side tabs. Play with it as you will. Maybe the swords could go here. Just have some fun with it. Okay, I'm in the process of editing this video and I totally missed something, so I'm inserting this video clip. By the way, it's been a few days and my thumb is doing much better. So, we've got some weapon storage underneath the vehicle. This black pistol will fit into this hole here, which was in the hips area. And insert the handle straight down, and then these pegs on the side, the hands will peg onto those. And then we've got this weapons port right there, and then this long tab. So one of these side pegs will fit into that port, and this long tab will fit into the handle of the pistol. And so this longer pink handle will fit pointing towards the length of the vehicle. And then we've still got these blades left over, either on the sides, like that. But I think I like this look a little better. I think that's neat. Anyway, for transformation back to robot mode, we're going to lift the tail section of the car, fold the rear bumper back under, bring her legs down, and pivoting on the silver pin as well as the hidden joint in her thigh. Finish bringing the legs down, and we'll bring the arms down. Next we'll raise what is her abdomen section up to the front of the car. And then we're going to take this front section of the car, which is her chest, and free that from the front of the car and bring that down. to about a 90-degree angle to the front of the car. Next we'll bring the front of the car back. Arms have to come down a little bit further. And then this connection that connects her chest to her backpack slots right over these posts that hold her arms. There's a peg on the back of her midsection, pegs into a hole back here. Squeeze that together, and then we'll push her head down until that pegs into place, and then we'll bring her feet up. And we will weaponize her. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I prefer to keep her swords back here. Again, if your figure has the space between her thumb and her fingers, you're not going to be able to put your weapon in there. You need to watch the extra credit on this video to see the modification so that the weapons will fit completely into her hand. And again, you can watch me stab myself in the thumb. Let's see her next to some of the other fembots from this line. We've got her with Windblade and Chromia. Now if you look at the back of the box art, Chromia has an extra pistol that she doesn't come with, and they next to that picture it says additional weapon not included. And that's because the weapon was packaged with RC. Right here. That's fine. RC doesn't need 2 guns and 2 swords. She's cool. She likes to share. Okay, that's it for today's lesson, everybody. Class dismissed. Be sure to stick around for the extra credit if you want to learn something. Extra credit. Thank you for sticking around for the extra credit. What we're going to look at first here is how I open carded figures. Now, if you're a collector, if you're a series collector, if you think you're ever going to give away or sell your figure, then you don't want to just peel the plastic off like that. You know, that's how I opened my figures when I was 5. And now this is all torn up. You're probably going to throw it in the trash. And that's not the way to go for an adult collector, certainly. Now, when I started collecting in my 20s, I would I would save the card, but cut off the plastic packaging. Well, but the best way to open a carded figure is to cut a flap in the side of the package. Now, some of my Generation Deluxes I've opened along the side, easy enough to get the comic book out, and because this seemed to be the widest side on the package. But an alternative for these figures could be to go through the top, not up here, but here. Can't get the comic book out that way, so scratch that. To go through the bottom. The top is not much wider than the bottom, so given the flexibility of the plastic tray inside, it should be able to pull through the slightly narrower opening, the slightly more narrow opening at the bottom. Now we're going to cut down this side. But I don't want to cut the book, just down to the book. Now I want to cut a flap starting at the corner by the book to go across the bottom, and that's where I will slide the book out. I do want to be careful though not to cut the comic book. So I'm going to use surgical precision despite my shaky hands. Alright, if that was surgical, then my patient might have just, might be hemorrhaging right now. Nurse, nurse. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, it would be lovely for Hasbro to simply put a closable flap on these. I don't think it would take much more effort in the packaging process or the design process, and certainly these packages are made pretty simple, let's say Spartan, so that they can be recycled, because a lot of people who purchase these toys in the US do not save the packaging. You know, primarily these are for kids, so they tear the package open and discard it. And of course, Hasbro wants people to be able to recycle these things, so the plastic is recyclable and the cardboard is recyclable. But if this were a just a flap that tucked in right here, then I don't think that would take much more material for them, plastic or otherwise. It could still be recyclable, but for us collectors, then we would be able to save our package and keep it nice. So now we need to make one more incision down this side, and we want to be careful not to cut the cardboard or the instructions that are inside there. And really, I don't want to pierce the inner plastic tray, so I'll try to use that surgical precision again. Practice and patience make perfect. Got plenty of practice, a little short on the patience. Just a little bit more to go. There we are. And the figure will slide out quite easily now. And of course the book can also slide out of the bottom. Now, despite this type of packaging and the nuisance that it is for me, it sure would be swell if every figure came with its own comic book. So we got our book. Let's say I read it. I'm putting it back. Just want to be careful that the corners go in flat. And then I can take my figure out of the package, play with it, put it on my shelf, and then in a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, decide that I don't want it on my shelf anymore. I can put it back in the tray, put the tray back in the package, put the cardboard insert back in, and put the instructions back in. Okay, we're going to cut, and we're back with a new scene. Now, this may or may not be news to you that there are two variations, at least two that we know of this figure. And that is, one variation of the figure has an opening between the thumb and the fingers. The alternate version of the figure, the thumb is connected to the fingers. I'm not opening up this other figure because it is going back to the store. Now, as far as one being more rare than the other, the store had gotten in 2 cases of deluxe figures, and it had RC and Chromia in those cases. In one case, they had 6 or so of the figures with the thumbs touching the fingers, and only 1 with the opening in the hand. In the other case, they were almost all open-handed. So, between 2 cases, they had an equal number of connected fingers and unconnected fingers. Personally, I like that the fingers aren't connected on this design. It just seems a little more normal to me if she were just standing, chilling out, hanging. I'm sure that having these two areas connected here would give the hand more stability. You know, with years of play wear, these fingers would be more likely to break than the ones that are connected. But if we put this in her hand, let's see. Okay, here is the additional variation on the two I'm discovering now, of course. On this figure with the open fingers, the weapons will not slide all the way through. There is a lip here that is preventing the weapon from coming through the bottom. But looking at the figure with the closed fingers, I can see all the way through the hand, and it doesn't have that lip preventing the figure from sliding through. This is an unusual experience. Never seen anything quite like it. Of course, I don't want to break the thumb off by pushing the weapon all the way through. But if you see my library of videos, you know that I'm not afraid to perform plastic surgery. So let's give this a shot. And I'm just going to put the blade in at one end of that section of plastic and wiggle and work the blade into it until the blade is flush with the fingers. And the same at the front. Now I want to try to get the blade in here to cut through this section. Now, maybe a nail file of some sort or sandpaper or something would allow you to file this area down without the risk of breaking the fingers off. Of course, that might file away the inside of the fingers as well. The method that I'm trying is very risky. I could certainly stab myself. I might consider something to brace the plastic instead of using my thumb right here. But blood's cool, right? I'm just working the tip in. Hope the camera's alright. Don't want to have to buy my girlfriend a new one. Not yet, anyway. We're a little tight on funds at the moment. I'm spending all my money on toys. Ah, blood. So if you end up buying this figure from me, just make sure you disinfect it, just in case I don't get a chance to. Now, looks like I lost some of the tip of her fingers. So, you might not want to use this method that I just used, or be more careful or smarter, or just have more skill, better technique. And I still have a bit of plastic that needs to come off that bottom there. Now, should I have learned from my mistake and not try to do this anymore, or should I have learned from my mistake and developed a better sense of working this blade through the plastic? Feel free to answer that question in the comments section of this video, because your comments makes us famous. Okay. Alright, so now the weapon slides through, and she can get a better grip on that pistol or on this translucent blue plastic blade. Doesn't look too bad with her fingers missing there, and you know what, I'm probably just going to play with this figure for a few more weeks and then put it up on my shelf. Yeah, gross. And then put it up on my shelf and forget that I ever did that damage. Until you guys and gals remind me. Let's try to get this other hand done and see if we can do this without... you know what, let's go disinfect our utensils here and come back a little bit cleaner. And we're back. Okay, got all bandaged up. Now we are going to try this again on this hand. I'm going to try the same technique. I'm just going to try to use more precision and less cutting myself. So we're going to try this again on this side. And let's wiggle this blade in. Children, please don't try this yourselves. Irresponsible adults, and you're probably going to try this, I'm sure. Responsible adults, try to think of a smarter way than I did here. Like maybe putting a block of wood back there, back here, down here, I don't know. Maybe a drill. Nah, I'm not entirely skilled at this customizing stuff. If you haven't seen my Transformers Prime Triple Changer Arachnid video, watch it now! So, now I'm wondering if this thumb and the fingers, you know, whoever made this design thought that they should put this down here to give the hand a little more strength and durability, without realizing maybe that the weapon couldn't slide through the hand. But if they did, I wonder at what point they thought that they should instead connect the fingers so that they could open that section at the bottom of the hand and then allow the weapons to slide through. Can you see the difference there? Anyway, so if you don't want to risk cutting your fingers off, I recommend now, indeed, getting the figure where the thumb and the fingers are connected. But if you don't mind a little plastic surgery, then I still like the idea of having the thumb and the fingers not connected. You know, there's the option of doing a motion like this, where I can just shave off a little plastic. I'm going to give that a shot. And coming back the other way. I'm getting some resistance from this plastic. And that looks open. Oh, I see a little bit down here in the corner that I should try to shave out. There we go. Weapon test. And this slides through. I noticed her fingers push out a little bit once getting the weapon in there. Let's see if that happens with the gun. I didn't notice it so much with the gun. I wonder if the handle on the sword is ever so slightly wider than the handle on the gun. Ever so slightly. That's like, I don't know, a millimeter maybe? I wonder if the opening on this closed-fingered hand is maybe a little bit wider than the opening on these fingers. That's possible. Allowing the sword to fit a little bit better into this hand than it did in this hand. But it wasn't awful. I think it shouldn't cause too much stress on the fingers. At least not for an adult collector who's gonna play with this just a little bit and pose it just a little bit. But for a kid, you know what, these fingers are probably gonna be toast. You're gonna see these in bins at Goodwill with no fingers. Alright everybody, thank you for joining me on this extra bloody extra credit. And you get 2 thumbs up and a gold star, and of course some extra credit, which I don't know what you can do with, but maybe feel good about it. See you next time.